Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd just like to welcome His Excellency the President, President Jacob Zuma. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us and giving us this opportunity to talk to you. The Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, thank you for your time, sir. Welcome to you. There are so many people here today. Can I just say to all of you, ministers, senior public figures, members of parliament, business people, you're all important. But can I just say all protocol observed to all of you as we say welcome and thank you for joining us. To Madam First Lady, thank you very much indeed for being with us as well. Welcome to you. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are here for the first time, these breakfasts have been running for some time, and it's always a great pleasure to have the country's leadership to talk live to us and also to the public via television. And today being the day after the night before, where an important speech was delivered by the President, this is a great opportunity for us to unpack that. So these breakfasts have been a partnership between the New Age and the SABC for some time. And just before we go on air, I'd just like to introduce a few people to share their thoughts with us today. And I'd like to start by welcoming the editor at the New Age, Muxine Williams. Comrade.
His Excellency Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Madam First Lady, Honorable Cabinet members and Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, Premiers of Provinces, Senior Government officials, Chairperson of Transnet, Ms. Linda Mbaso, and other distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Muxine Williams, the editor of the New Age, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this breakfast briefing this morning. We do this briefing once again in partnership with the SABC and our sponsor today, Transnet. These briefings were an innovation on our part and have been considered a runaway success in transforming public debate in our country. However, based on the coverage we have seen of our government, and especially the presidency in recent times, it is apparent that there is a dire need for media transformation in our country. This is needed to change the deliberately created perception that South Africa is a failed state to one that shows that the true narrative is, yes, we are grappling with developmental challenges, but that we are also moving forward and making progress. This was the main reason why the New Age was launched just over 5 years ago under tough conditions. Against the odds, the paper has not only survived, but entered a period of sustainability and viability which we are enjoying today. This morning, we published 6 regional editions printed in 3 provinces with the ultimate quest to have an edition in each of our provinces, hopefully in the next year or two. Mr. President, I welcome you to a much more peaceful environment than the one you experienced last night. I can assure you that you will be allowed to speak without being interrupted, maybe except by Peter Ndoro. Mr. President, in your State of the Nation address last night, you gave the country renewed confidence after what can be described as a somewhat tumultuous period. You and your executive team seem to have come up with a number of plans related to the economy and the need for government and all of us to tighten our belts. Of particular interest were your comments on nuclear energy, a commitment to partner with business, a new discussion on the future of Parliament, and I can assure you this must have unnerved Cape Townians no end, and an indication that the local government elections could be held in August this year. Mr. President, our viewers at home and our audience here today are therefore keen to hear you unpack your State of the Nation address and respond to their questions. I thank you for making yourself available today and for this opportunity. It's greatly appreciated. And to you in the audience, I hope you enjoyed today's business briefing, and once again, welcome.
Thanks, Maxine. Maxine, thank you very much indeed. You always set the stage very, very well, so thank you so much indeed. Just at the beginning, I just want to add another two people I'd just like to specially welcome, and I'd like to say welcome to Mrs. Tobeka Madiba Zuma and Mrs. Bongi Mangema Zuma. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to both of you. These breakfasts, for them to continue to happen, for us to be able to reach as many people as we are able to with this broadcast. And it's not just in South Africa, it also goes to 49 countries across the continent. So the attention of the continent will be with us today. And that is in part because we have some generous sponsors that make sure that this continues to happen. And Transnet, we're very grateful for your participation in making sure these breakfasts continue. And on that note, I'd like to call upon the chairperson of Transnet, Ms. Linda Mabaso. Let me help you out. There we go. Are you well? Okay.
Thank you. Indeed, Maxim has set up the stage. I'm not going to say much. His Excellency, our President, the Honorable Jacob Zuma, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa, First Ladies, Minister of Public Enterprises, Ms. Lynn Brown, our shareholder representative, officials from the Department of Public Enterprises, honorable members of Cabinet and Parliament, members of the Transnet Board of Directors, my colleagues, Transnet Management, distinguished guests, our partners, the New Age and SABC. Welcome to another briefing made possible by Transnet. Today we have a very special guest in our midst, our President. My name is Linda Mabaso. I am the chairperson of the Transnet Board of Directors. We start, Mr. President, by warmly congratulating you on last night's reassuring address. The President's commitment to leading our economy was also witnessed in full force in his meeting with top business leaders earlier this week. The issues he raised, economic development, growth and transformation, are equally close to us at Transnet. Mr. President, all of us are traveling on this journey together. We are proud at Transnet that Transnet plays such a vital and critical role in ensuring that our economy and social goals are achieved. We agree with the President that this is for the greater good of our beautiful nation. We are excited for Transnet to be afforded the opportunity via this forum of unpacking and interrogating this important address. This represents democratic accountability at its best. All of our people can ask questions via hotline, via SMS, as well as on our vigorous social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook. Babu Msholozi, Ngomalala, thank you again for giving us this unique opportunity to engage. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you so much. And just one last voice I'd like to call upon stage. This is a partnership, as I said, between the SABC and the New Age. We've heard from the New Age. It's my great pleasure to welcome my Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Claudi Motsoneng of the SABC. Good to see you. You're good.
Thank you very much, Peter. Our President, Jacob Zuma, our Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, and our ministers. I'm glad to be here today. Yesterday, the President addressed the nation. In his address, he mentioned some of the issues that are very important for our country. Partnership with business, with government. In SABC, President Zuma, when it comes to saving the jobs of employees of the SABC, there's no doubt that the jobs of the SABC will be safe. We are also creating jobs at the SABC. Why are we doing this? It's because of partnership. Because government is not giving us money. So what we do, we come with new innovation to partner with business, people who can invest in SABC. There is this mindset of people about the new technology, and I hear that some of the big companies or SOEs, they are talking about retrenching people. We at SABC, we can't retrench people, because even if you use technology, you need human beings. It is not true that when you use technology, people should lose jobs. Mr. President, you know there are issues that I think the government is not communicating well. When we talk about the BRICS, BRICS has open opportunity for South Africans. SABC is part of that. We are benefiting from BRICS. We are partnering with other broadcasters internationally so. And they are going to give us money so that we can always create these jobs for our own people. You also mentioned, President, our artists, because most of the time they die poorly. But President, SABC, we are going to pay royalties from 2006. Those people were not benefiting when we talk about royalties, but now we have put budget aside and the CFO is there. Money is there to pay their royalties. This shows that in SABC, we have brain to make sure that we come with innovation to sustain the organization. Mr. President, people have been talking about the economy. You know, everything happens for a good reason. When people were saying the economy is not doing well for the country, for SABC, the economy was doing well. Let me demonstrate this. We negotiate sports rights. We could not afford the amount that they were looking. And I said to them, look, you know our economy is not doing well. Where are we going to get this money? They agree. We secure those rights. What I'm saying, we should not say, especially economists, to say everything is not well, everything is well. Is how as people are we reacting to the situation. And we as SABC, we did react accordingly. And I always differ, President, with intellectuals. I always differ because sometimes I don't see this intellectual in them. They may not like it, but that is how I see it. And you know, intellectuals, what we mean by intellectuals? Because some intellectuals, they believe that they can lead. Not all. There are those who are chosen to lead by God. And those who are chosen, they will always lead. Because the reason being, you know, when I sit and interact with people, I always argue with intellectuals that, look, as long as I see this nice degree, but I don't get exactly what are you telling me or influencing me to do, I will never recognize that. Because it can't be right, South Africans, to say people like myself who don't have matric, I can't lead the organization. It can't be right. Because the experience has shown that people have been there. When I came there, SABC is sustainable, financially so. But our own leaders, even historically, even Jesus Christ. No, I'm telling you the truth. When Jesus Christ, people were asking, who is this Jesus Christ? Some of them were intellectual, if you read Bible. And that was the person who saved people. It is very important for all of us as South Africans not to discriminate. Because for me, those who are talking about qualification, but they can't do the work, which means you are saying people who did not go to school, they should go and steal. We can't allow such a situation. God has given all of us talent and brain to excel and assist ourselves, which we are doing. And when you have these qualifications, it opens doors for you to go to work anywhere. But when you are there, it's not in the papers, it's you. Because we need to deal with these issues. But breaking news now. SABC Competition Commission, we have won yesterday. They ruled in our favor because some of the people they were complaining about SABC sold archives to multi-choice. And we have been explaining this. I'm very happy that we won yesterday. The relationship between us and the Guptas, it is a relationship that we are not going to stop. Some people have been asking us. Reason is the Guptas or New Age, they share the views that we share, good stories about South Africa. As long as we share the same views about South Africa, we will always partner with them. Because we can't, as South Africans, behave like as if we are Americans. We are not. We should be proud about our own country. And South Africa is doing well. We should be able to talk about such messages to our own people. Mr. President, we as SABC, we are on the move. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hlaudi Motsoaleng, thank you very much indeed, the COO at the SABC. Right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, you'll be seeing the President sitting in this chair, and we'll start this conversation. And don't forget our Twitter address at Morning Live SABC or hashtag TNABizBrief. That's where you can share this stage and put your questions to the President based on what you heard last night at the State of the Nation address. All of that coming up after this. Stay with us.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news service.
Okay. All right. And if I could get somebody to come up and mic him. Okay. Hello, Mr. President. Good to see you again. Great. Fantastic.
Thank you, my brother.
All right. If you could, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. They just want to test your microphone. If
No,
you
it
could
is
say
on.
something.
It is working.
There we go. Are you happy with the level?
I put it on myself.
Then it must be working for sure. In fact, if you're ever out of a job, we can get you a job at the SABC as a sound man.
Absolutely. As a sound person.
All right. Can you put your pieces of paper, your questions? If they're ready, please raise your hand now so we can collect those questions from you. As you can see, it's a full room, and you're competing with people at home as well. So let's get those questions in. This is a unique opportunity for you to ask a question, and you'll get a direct response. Eh? All right. Is Celia around? If Celia can come to the front, please. Thanks. So raise your hand, wave your piece of paper in the air, and one of our ladies will collect your questions from you. Once this thing starts, it moves faster than the speed of light. So please get your questions in. I don't want you to miss this opportunity. We've got a lot to talk about. Yeah. I'll
Didier Drogba, a footballer from Ivory Coast, was named as the third most influential celebrity in Africa.
Where I saw him display, he's a very nice player. He always make an impact.
Drogba donated his $5 million endorsement fee to the construction of a hospital in Abidjan.
Well, there are some lesser-known football stars in the continent that you haven't met.
Really?
And are deserving of more attention.
I think we will do better.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Right, so very warm welcome back. If you've just joined us, we have a very special guest this morning. Welcome. We're in Cape Town, and this is the morning after the night before, because last night the President of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, delivered the State of the Nation address, and he's with us here this morning just to share his thoughts a little bit more on the message that came through, and also give you an opportunity at home, wherever you may be watching across South Africa, and some of you across the continent, just to pose a few questions to the President. And he's got most of his team here. I've seen a lot of the ministers, so between him and his cabinet, we'll be able to address a lot of your questions. So let's introduce the first citizen and get his thoughts. Mr. President, always a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much to be here, Peter.
Right, so let's start with, a lot of people probably didn't get to hear the whole thing. A lot of things happened during the event that might have distracted them a little bit. But what would you say was your big messages in the address last night?
Well, Peter, firstly, before saying that, the point you started with, of people not hearing properly because of what was happening. I think it is important for South Africans to realize that we have a problem in some political parties who believe they have a right in democracy and their rights must be respected, but who do not respect the rights of others. Now, if you believe in the rights of yourself, your party, etc., I think it is important also to believe that other parties and other individuals have rights as well. I think it is not a good thing that when Parliament meets, you disrupt it deliberately, because you are not necessarily disturbing it for the people who are in Parliament. You're disrupting it for the whole country. I think people must see other parties and leaders for what they are. I think it's important to make that comment because it is almost becoming a culture, and it's a wrong culture. And I think it must be seen for what it is, and I think we must be able to deal with it, because otherwise people are going to think that our understanding of democracy is very crooked. I think we need to deal with it. We can't laugh about it forever. If it happened for a short time, it would be one thing. But once it happens, it becomes a trend, then we have a problem. I just thought it is important to make that comment. But of course, the State of the Nation, we're talking about the country. Firstly, that we are holding this important day when the economy is in difficulties, not only our economy, globally. The economic meltdown that started in 2008 has not gone away. Other countries have taken long to recover. I think only one country that recovered in a sense was the United States. I think Europe was in difficulties for the long time. Now they are coming back. The slowness of the recovery itself is impacting on all countries. We are therefore in a situation where we say, what do we do as a country to stand on our own feet and move forward? We are happy that the private sector and government have been meeting and discussing, and we are agreeing that we need to work together to see what is it that we can do. You will recall that last year, as one of the efforts to address the economic challenges, we came with a 9-point plan. What we're doing yesterday, we're unpacking what is it that we have done to implement those. But we also thought it was important to talk to our colleagues in business, first as we're going to Davos, to create or agree on the common narrative. What is it that we want to say to the world? Because we need investments. And we had a very good meeting. And in Davos, we were able to convey a very good message, collective. We are going to be going to the workers as well, the organized labor, to do so. We need to find what is it that could help us grow our economy. We believe that the infrastructure has actually proved that it can do something. I think in 1910, when the problems started of the economy, we were cushioned firstly by the infrastructure development that was there. Secondly, by the organized nature of our economy, particularly our banking system. Thereafter, we thought for South Africa to grow its economy, we needed to focus on the infrastructure as well as to focus on the energy. We are therefore saying, this time around, let us identify what are the key things that we need to do, where people should invest, and what has happened since then in the process. That is why we were indicating some investments that have come in this very process from outside. The direct foreign investment has come in, and that we need to find things that we can do together with the private sector. And we have, as the government, focused very much on the issue of the economy, particularly the economic cluster. And therefore, what we're saying there, this is the South Africa that needs to develop. If that is the case, it becomes important that we look at how do we save the resources, the money, and what do we do. So we tabulated the things we've done in terms of specific things, like the 9 points, that what we are doing on each. How do we vitalize the economy? How do we deal with agriculture? We focus on agriculture as an important area that we need to move forward. We are looking at the mining, as we said. There is no sector that we are not looking at. We believe that government has shown how much it can invest on itself and create jobs. Because part of the challenge that faces the world is the jobs. Because once the economy is disturbed, then the jobs go away. We are saying, for an example, to the private sector, if the economy is like this, what do you do if you were having a company? should your first reaction to reduce the staff, or should we find a way of maintaining the jobs? Because we're saying we cannot do business, you cannot do your things in a kind of business as usual. As well as the workers, can they, when the negotiation time comes, pitch up the demand as if things are normal? But this needs interaction, needs all of us to talk together and identify what we are doing. We have, for an example, on the matters of automotive, we have made good progress. We are saying let us invest, and investment there is clear. I think we indicated yesterday what has happened, what kind of the amounts that have come, the capital that has come there. So we are saying all of us must not look at our problems as the end of everything, but we must look at our problems as helping us to be innovative and move forward. We have, for an example, done a lot of work in science and technology in our country, innovation that we are doing ourselves. So we believe if we talk together and work together, we can go very far. That's a message we were conveying yesterday, and saying, therefore, this country has a potential to move forward. It is a developing country, like all other countries, but we believe we have possibilities to grow our economy. The situation is very difficult, and the IMF has its own focus on what is going to happen to individual countries, which include us. That must say to us we must double our effort so that we could move more and grow the economy, which must be inclusive. We must broaden it. We must bring more people to participate so that we can have the bigger kind of economic base.
All right. So one word that keeps coming up quite a bit is partnership, working together. And you've talked about the public sector working with the private sector. Is there a role that ordinary citizens can play? I'm reminded of John Fitzgerald Kennedy in the 60s, who says, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Are we at a time where maybe as ordinary citizens we need to find ways and maybe even start to generate the culture of what can I as an individual do to contribute to the country so that we can move the country forward? How do we inspire that in our citizens?
Well, that is the way to go. That question is absolutely important. Not to ask what can the country do for me and what I can do for the country. That's what we are saying, and we are trying to involve the people as much as possible. For an example, we established a Department of Small Business Development, which then goes to the people and deal with smaller kind of people who are doing small business. How do we help them to grow? Because the more they are more organized and participating, the more you grow the economy. We are also dealing with agriculture in terms of people who are in the rural areas. How do you organize the small farmers, for an example, so that they are able to produce in a modern way and they participate, therefore, in the economy of the country? In other words, we are saying the more citizens participate, the better. That is why, because you cannot do overnight, that is why we focus on education. Because for people, for citizens to participate, particularly if we take our history, you have got to empower them. We have got to help them. We have got to assist in many other ways so that they can be empowered to participate, having made the call that let us participate, but they need to be assisted. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a time where the system itself is quite aggressive, because big companies are not very kind to small companies. And yet we need to support small companies to grow so that more people could participate. For an example, it is agreed that small companies employ more people. So if they are allowed to grow, you are then participating in growing the economy of the country in whatever way that you can find yourself participating. There are young people, the youth, who are very innovative, who are participating, who need to be supported so that they can be able to make their own contribution. I believe there is everything that you can do. And as you know, there are people at times that are said to be unemployable. I think we could be creative to create jobs for them that will fit their own level of participation and capacity. That's how we could make them to grow. In other words, we should have programs, therefore. For an example, if we could all agree, given the mechanization and technology that is there, you could be ring-fencing certain types of economic activities for labor-intensive so that people participate. Because even if you say they should participate, but if there are no opportunities, it's difficult for them to participate. So in a sense, we all need to be innovative to create the opportunities that more citizens could participate.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a question that I asked you a few years ago, I think the first time I spoke to you. And just to get a sense of the state of the nation, when you consider everything, the economy, social aspects, everything, on a scale of 1 to 10, so that we get a sense of how much work still needs to be done. So the patient's name is Republic of South Africa. And comes to the hospital and comes to see Dr. Zuma. Dr. Zuma assesses the state of the nation. What would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we as a country, and so that we can get a sense of what still needs to be done? 1 to 10.
Well, as a country, I think we've made progress. Partly if you take our history into consideration, we've made good progress. I think this is accepted by many in the world, that South Africa has made good progress. We have dealt with the social issues that affect people. We've tried to create jobs, and we have created jobs. The only problem is that once we are creating jobs, we're losing jobs at the same time. And therefore, the impact is not felt at the same time. I think as a country, we have investment that is coming. But it has come, for an example, at the beginning, we thought it will grow by 5%. But the economic meltdown could not allow us to grow in that way. But we have been working very hard to invest. For an example, the infrastructure is one of a very visible progress that we have made in the country. We have dealt with things, some of which were difficult to deal with. I've often said that the issue of energy was a distorted picture before 1994. We have moved on it. We are building huge power stations to satisfy the needs of the economy and the needs of the people in general. That is kind of a visible progress. We've worked out a national plan that is accepted by all South Africans. There's clarity where we are going on the National Development Plan. That is a success that not many countries have, wherein they know exactly where they are going. And therefore, any kind of activity that we are undertaking, you know what we are doing. You know that we are pushing for South Africa forward. I think we have opened education. We have focused, we have made it priority number one. And we divided the big department for basic and higher education precisely to make the majority of South Africans who were excluded before to become part, to be empowered, to become part of the development. These are tangible things we have done. And we have created an excitement and a demand that is being received by the people. The numbers that are now coming to education institutions are too big. In fact, we have a problem of the stampede when education institutions are open. It tells you that we are making a huge progress forward. I would believe that as a country, given our age, given the challenges, we have made good progress. Okay. We've harmonized even the cohesion with regard to social life. I know that the bubbles that have come of racism, people might feel we are worse than where we are. I don't think so. It's a big challenge that we need to deal with, but South Africans, the majority of South Africans, accept the fact that we are living in a non-racial country, in a multiracial country, and there is harmony that we are building. There are pockets that we'll find. I mean, that issue is a problem globally of racism, etc. So I would say, as a country, if I was saying, here is a patient, I say, this patient of mine, Masha is not necessarily well, but is fit to do whatever that can be done.
So what you're saying is that South Africa can remain as an outpatient. You're not going to admit this patient at this time?
Definitely.
Okay.
Not just an outpatient, the patient who's working and just coming for checkups.
Okay. All right, okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start getting into the nitty-gritty of some of the messages that came through last night and some of the measures that government is going to take going forward. We're also going to start getting your questions at Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief, and we also have a full audience here that are going to be communicating as well with the President. So stay with us as we continue this conversation. We'll be back after this.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we have been banned.
It didn't happen to me on that day because I was already in jail when it happened. I was scared that when I get back to Joburg, I was going to be arrested. Well, I wasn't. Who are you asking? You're looking at me?
Yes, Zubaida, I'm talking to you.
So the old fuddy-duddies like Dennis and me will remain there? I just want to say, Joe, that the thing about... Damn, go on, and it's coming back to me.
So much more than just the Legal and Rights show. Join Dumile Mateza every Sunday at 2 p.m. only on the SABC News channel.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that you get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Live, where the focus of this morning show is on the SABC TNA business briefing taking place in the Western Cape, where Peter Ndoro is in conversation with our President Jacob Zuma. In some of the opening remarks, he recapped on the disruptions that were seen in Parliament. Of course, the President only really getting to speak an hour after the scheduled time for the State of the Nation address due to the disruptions in the chambers. Also speaking about the demon of racism that he spoke about last night, and saying that many people are starting to accept that we live in a multiracial country, and also highlighting that the 21st of March would be the Day Against Racism here in South Africa. Of course, that would be the theme of Human Rights Day for today. Lots of other important issues. Let's go over to Peter Ndoro now as he continues to unpack these with our President.
Well, a very good morning to you, Valen. Yes, we continue with our post-mortem of the State of the Nation address. We're dissecting the nitty-gritties of what the President had to say. President Jacob Zuma, the head of state, the head of government, on stage with Peter Ndoro. I'm on floor at the moment, Valen, harassing a number of the stakeholders, just discussing some of the issues on the periphery. Now, a gentleman who must have quite a low blood pressure this morning, because yesterday's proceedings happened relatively uneventful as compared to 2015. It is the Minister of State Security, Mr. David Mahlobo. I think this time around, all the journalists were complaining, or at least commenting you, on the excellent signal that they had inside there. And we didn't see any waiters, no gentlemen in white shirts there this time around. Are you pleased with how the proceedings went yesterday?
Well, firstly, a very good morning to our President and all the viewers at home. We want to commend the security agencies for the country. Once again, we demonstrated that the security agencies can host any important event. Yesterday was South Africa's day when our President gave us the marching orders. The event went very well. There was no necessity to apply excessive force. The law enforcement agencies, they were able to do their job, including those that had the right to march. They marched very peacefully. They cooperated. Therefore, what President is saying that there has to be cooperation and engagement between ourselves, so that the rights that we have and we enjoy under the Constitution should not be the rights that affect other people's rights. We are very, very happy that yesterday it went well, but our congratulations goes to those men and women who are keeping our country safe.
A number of issues that the President had raised yesterday had a lot to do about the economy, and we know that there's a lot of infrastructure surrounding that makes sure that we do start to earn the money that we make in South Africa and that the investment comes. And one of those infrastructures is information communication technology, ICT, quite crucial. Last year, you focused quite a lot on cyber security. Talk to us a little bit about this year and where we are when it comes to the cyber security bill.
Well, we know that as a security cluster working with the ICTS, we went to Cabinet last year because the cyberspace is very important in shocking our economy, because if you don't secure the cyberspace that allows us to communicate, exchange information, do business, all those important hardware that we do have at our disposal, if they are not secured, we will have a particular problem. Therefore, Cabinet has supported us through the leadership of the President. We have gone there with other ministers, the ministers of telecommunication, justice, and others. We presented a document. The document has then gone to public participation, and we are expecting that these comments that we have received will be in a position, working through the parliamentary processes, to conclude securing our cyberspace as South Africans.
Without stealing any more of your time, I know that State of the Nation address maps out the way and paves the way for the year ahead. Something else that I stumbled upon that's got to do with your department, the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence, quite a crucial watchdog body. A role that it plays is to ensure that the rule of law is upheld and that the rights of South Africans are protected against the abuse of power by intelligence services. The position has been vacant for close to a year. You'll correct me if I'm mistaken, with no sign of compromise there. It will be interesting to see how the parties will resolve that impasse. I know it's not your jurisdiction, but any indication as to when this will be resolved?
Well, the President, when he made the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, we want parties that are in Parliament stopped to politicize the matter and put the interests of South Africans first. We are hoping that early this year, because now Parliament has been open after President gave the State of the Nation address yesterday, they will put their heads together and finalize this important instrument of an oversight mechanism that our Constitution provides, and we will be able to conclude the matter, but it's in the hands of Parliament.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for that. And without further ado, Peter, it's back to you.
Ayanda, thank you very much indeed. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Ayanda, thanks very much indeed. And we'll continue with various people from the floor, but also getting your tweets. And just before I do go to the floor, Mr. President, there was somebody who tweeted me a while ago and said, Peter, these breakfasts are great. You ask great questions, but we should actually also go back and start seeing how far we've gone with some of the promises that you've made. And so last night you spoke at great length about cutting expenditure, at trimming parties and so on and so forth. And I'm just wondering, December 2009, and in fact in 2010 in your State of the Nation address, this is what you said. Cabinet has approved a turnaround strategy for local government to ensure that local government has the correct management and administrative and technical skills. Minister Praveen Gordhan, when he was the Finance Minister the first time, said in 2013 that medium-term budget, he says, cutting wasteful expenditure. So we've said these things a long time ago. And the question is it that government isn't taking you seriously, or they just don't know how to cut expenditure?
No. We have taken measures. When Minister Praveen was the Minister of Finance, he made the announcements, and we followed those announcements. The economy has been getting worse and worse. You will remember that Minister Nene, in his last budget, he also raised the issue, I think, twice already. We took those measures. The economy has been getting worse and worse. And that's why we are making the announcements we made yesterday, which are very detailed, and the Minister of Finance will be doing it when he presents the budget. What we have done, we are now specifically giving some details. Like, for an example, yesterday we said we are going to cut down, and we had never said that, to the size of delegations that go out to conferences and other areas. And we'll standardize. In other words, it's not going to be that if I go abroad, I can take as much people as I want. It's a question of so many people, essential people, in other words, that must go and standardize and check on it. And that's why we're saying yesterday, which is different than what we've been saying before, people are going to motivate why you have got it to take so much above what is standardized, including why are you going to this particular function out there, so that there is an agreement. We've never taken measures to that level. I think this indicates that the worse of the economic situation, we need to tighten the belt even further. That's what we are doing. The Minister of Finance, for an example, will be coming with some of the things that I did not say, including how do we change and standardize the cars that are used by the officials, instead of one buying whatever car they think is necessary, which might be more expensive. We need a reliable car that can take you, make you work. That, of course, is a car of a minister or deputy minister or whatever, of a mayor for that matter. But we are trying to find ways where we cut so that we can save money. So it's not because in the past it has not happened. It has. This time around, we are creating some mechanism to monitor that. Okay. And we have said, for an example, the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation has to look at this very closely together with the Treasury.
All right, okay, let's go to our tables now, and we'll start at table number 8, where Councillor J.C. Cranor is sitting. Councillor Cranor, table number 8. If you could stand up, we'll get a microphone to you.
I think it's this side.
There we go.
Mr. President, do you not believe, as I do, that it would be most prudent where you, as the President of RSA, and as a first priority, endeavoured to restore South Africa as the home of the rainbow people, to bring all the people living outside the borders of South Africa back to South Africa, to help with reinstating South Africa as one of the leading nations on the planet.
Okay, Mr. President.
Well, I think that is a very important point the questioner is making. If I had the power to raise my finger and say, all come, and they came, I could do so. I think people have left the country for different reasons. Some left because they were feeling unsafe earlier on. Others felt they needed to go out there and do whatever. But they have been coming back with time. But of course, they can't come back at the same time. Others might not come back. You will realize that whenever there is something that happens globally, you will find that there was a South African there. We are all over the world. And many of the people who have left have got high skills. And that's why that call we always make when we visit countries to say South Africans come back home. The situation is there. So we are making the call to come back. But it depends to those people for the reasons that they left. Others have come back, have come to say, look, I'm now back. And I'm here, I'm participating, etc. So it's not an issue that you could either legislate about or just force people. I think it's a question of us selling our country more. Because even if we sell the country to people who come in to do business, it must be more attractive to South Africans. So if they could all come back, I think we'll be happy. Some are finding it nice there, and they come to visit, etc. So if we were to say come and they came, we'll be very happy. Okay. But it depends on individuals, where they want to be at a given time. But we are saying South Africans come back and put your skills in South Africa. That's what we want. South Africa is a wonderful country. There are some people, having gone out, when they visit, they realize how beautiful South Africa is. So I think the question is very genuine, it's very correct as well. Okay. Let us all make the call to our friends and relatives who are out there to say, South Africa is here welcoming you back to come and participate to develop South Africa.
Okay. Let's go to table 24. Is that Yanni Myberg? Yanni Myberg? Table number 24. If you could stand up, we'll get a microphone to you. There we go.
Janine Myberg.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my eyes or your writing, or combination of the two.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning.
Mr. President, you stated last night that some state-owned enterprises would be phased out and so doing reduce our national debt levels. Are these state-owned enterprises to be sold, privatized, and if so, which ones?
I'm sure she wants to buy some, I can see. No, I can't say right now which one, because I was really putting the cart before the horse. What we have done, I established a committee some few years back to investigate the state-owned enterprises and produce a report. And that was done. Firstly, to say how many they are, where they are, and their specific recommendations, what needs to be done. We did not act immediately on the recommendations. We are now, and that process is under the guidance of the Deputy President, looking at those reports, to deal with the specifics. It is the process, us looking at the recommendations, perhaps looking at other things now, that will determine which one we think should survive or is doing well, which one we believe is not doing well. And even then, we might say, or the recommendations could say, if you do X, Y, Z, you can actually bring it back. It could still be viable. But in others, you might feel this one perhaps is better to take it out. Decisions will be taken, then what do you do with it? Are you selling it? Are you privatizing it or whatever? I can't say right now so many will be privatized and these are X, Y, Z. But the process is going to take us to a point where we will say these are the ones we believe they should remain and these are the ones we must do something about. I think there will be different things that will be done. It would not be one size fits all.
Right.
In other words, it would be the question of which one and what do we do? And then at that time, the lady could put her ear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying the Deputy President is running with that?
It's running with the report which is already there.
Right.
To work on it and see how far we go. He is running with it.
Well, let's go to the Deputy President. Ask him. Deputy President Ramaphosa, if I could get a microphone to you. If you could stand up and we'll get a microphone to you. And whilst the microphone is coming, I'm going to give you time. I'm going to ask the question so you can think about it. So some of the assets we're not going to sell for sure, but they're not doing well. And I'm thinking National Airline is one of them. Is there going to be a shake-up of the leadership, maybe even the board, because something needs to be done?
Well, as the President said yesterday in his State of the Nation address, quite a number of our state-owned enterprises or companies are doing extremely well. And he listed those that even people in other countries admire in terms of what it is they are delivering for development in our country. Yes, what we are looking at in the interministerial committee that the President set up are a number of issues. Their performance, the performance at a financial level, at an operational level, at a commercial level. We're also looking at the governance, the corporate governance practices that are being played out in some of those state-owned enterprises. So we're looking at a plethora of issues. And when we do come up with our report, we'll come up with clear recommendations that will also interface with the report that came out of the Presidential Review Commission that the President set up on state-owned enterprises. So we will come up with a consolidated report which will have clear recommendations on what needs to be done. And this will be underpinned by what the President also said yesterday, because there are some state-owned enterprises that are not necessarily relevant to the developmental needs or challenges or objectives of the country, and those we will deal with in a particular way. And those that are still critical for developmental objectives that we have as a country, we will continue with, and if they are experiencing problems, we will continue to support them. The ultimate objective, of course, is that every state-owned enterprise, one, must be well-governed, it must operate commercially in a viable way, it must make profits and pay dividends. That is what we want them to live for, but also foster development for our people as a whole.
So you're not going to be afraid to change personalities and people in these institutions if you need to?
No, there are no holy cows.
Okay.
We will not be afraid to change people or personalities or boards or even processes if need be. That we will do. We are a government that is committed to doing the right thing. And under the leadership of the President, we will act, and we will act correctly.
All right, just before you sit down, and just to get your comment, I've asked the President about this as well, but this family has become more famous than Michael Jackson, it seems. The Guptas. And I'm just wondering, government's view on this family, their influence or no influence. Just address the nation now as government, as senior member of government, the role that the Guptas are playing in this country and your views on that.
Well, the President addressed this issue when you actually asked it the last time yourself. And it's always revolved around the person of the President. And the question has always been President and you and the Guptas. And the President explained that, yes, he as a person has a relationship with them, and he gave that explanation. The Gupta family has invested in this country. They've invested in newspapers. They've invested in computers and a number of other economic activities. And they continue to operate in that way. And where they will interface with government, they will be able to interface with government just like in any other cooperation, just like any other company. And that is how they need to be analyzed, they need to be examined in terms of whether they meet all the requirements that any company in the country will need to meet, whether it comes to any contract, whether it comes to any tender, whether it comes to anything. And that is the type of relationship we expect any company to have with government. It must be arm's length, it must be based on proper corporate regulations, it must be based on principle, and it must be based on proper governance procedures. And that is what I think we should use as a litmus test. We should use that to judge whether things are being done properly or not. And as for the President, he has explained, and we accept that explanation.
All right. Thank you very much, Deputy President. Okay, let's go to table 35, where we'll find Aaron Messala. Table 35, Aaron Messala.
Good morning, President.
Yeah, speak.
Good morning, President.
Good morning.
I have a very simple question. We have listened last night about the economical development, and there's a big question in our minds as traditional leaders. How will government support the small businesses in our communities? Lastly also, and how will government also support us as traditional leaders in the Western Cape with the forming of the Provincial House of Traditional Leaders?
What is the last part of the question?
Just say the last bit of your question.
The last one is to the President. How will he intervene in the forming of the establishment of the Provincial House of Traditional Leaders in the Western Cape?
Okay, Provincial Houses of Leaders in the Western Cape. Yeah.
Yeah, well, well, with regards to the small businesses, what we have done as government, because we saw the need for focusing on that issue, we have established a ministry, and the minister is around here, Minister Zulu, whose job is to ensure that throughout the country, small businesses are given attention. And of course, she's working with other colleagues in the cluster, economic cluster. I think what will be important would be that if small businesses exist in different areas, should link up with that department. It's no longer the question of, small businesses are somewhere we don't know where to go. There is now a ministry which is specifically focusing on the small businesses. So that's where we need to go. Wherever we are, she's ready. She's very energetic. She's all over. She's young. She can deal with everything that needs to be dealt with. With regard to the last question, I think the matters will have to be put squarely on the table to be supported by whatever evidence and the motivation that will lead to the kind of decisions about the traditional leaders in the Western Cape. I know that whenever I meet your people, they've always made this point clear. We have discussed, and at some point we were actually saying the Minister of Rural Development as well as Cocta, they were talking to yourselves about the matter. Once the matter is discussed properly and it needs proper resolutions, I think that will be done. But I think that it is important that there are facts that must be brought before and be supported as to what is it that we are talking about. You know that the process of the traditional leaders in the country has taken certain dimensions. Even in some other provinces where there were more kings, they were reduced at some point. And there are some who are claiming kingships from different angles. Those matters need to be put to the test, to be discussed and agreed, so that we can then take a final decision. And it is the communities that must present evidence sufficiently. Of course, we all know the plight of the indigenous people in the Western Cape over the centuries. Those matters also must be taken into account. I don't think we could leave that issue unattended to, but it needs interaction. And I think there are structures that are dealing with those matters. Once you have moved further with evidence and everything, as well as the structures that are being set to address those matters, I'm sure it should not be difficult to finalize the matters.
All right. Just before we take a quick break, Mr. President, one question. This was quite an interesting week for South Africa and for you, and you made a lot of concessions at the beginning of this week, just before the Constitutional Court sat. And I think South Africans would like to know what changed your view on the public protector's role and powers, and also the thought that you would start to pay back some money on your residents. What changed your view?
I'm not sure whether there was a change of view. I don't know how people look at it. If you recall, Public Protector produced a report and said he found nothing wrong that the president did in the process of building of his homestead. But there were few items that she had a view that it did not, from her view, qualify as security elements in the house, and therefore felt that the president and the family benefited somehow, and they might need to pay some reasonable amount. She did not say how much. She then said the Minister of Police and Finance might meet and determine what is it that needs to be paid. Of course, the report went to Parliament. Parliament had its own processes that went on for a long time. I also asked the police, minister in particular, to proceed and make the determination. So I did not say I'm not going to pay. Otherwise, I would not have written that letter, which I even wrote to Parliament. I heard that people say I've changed my mind. I haven't. The determination as to what is to be paid has not been made. Many a times in Parliament, when I was answering, particularly the EFF, when they were saying pay back the money, one day I asked them, how much must I pay? They don't know.
Okay, so the police...
Now, let me conclude. So, it's not correct. This was just a political perception created that I'm refusing to pay. I never said I'm not going to pay this month. I have now my views about how the conclusions were. The police ministry then took that process to look into the matter of determining. And they made a determination that the money that must be paid by the president is zero. He should not pay. So there is another determination that has been made by a process recommended by the public protector. Then it was only after that that the opposition parties took the matter to the Constitutional Court, discussing with my lawyers, because that fact that I've never said I'm not going to pay the money. The view was, should we really go through that process of discussing whether we are paying the money or not, because we have never said so. The determination had not been made. People might have had a view how the determination was made. After all, paying that money is not admitting that there was something wrong that the president did. The matters are very clear. Rather than going so far, we said, why can't we then make a proposal that an assessment must be made? And we said, because what it meant is that people are not happy with what the police minister had determined. So the proposal was that the Auditor General and the Treasury should therefore make the determination.
Did the police minister get it wrong then?
Sorry?
Did the police minister get it wrong then?
No, I'm not saying so. There was a thorough investigation, including what the police were saying, because the public protector, if you remember, was saying these things were not necessarily security features. And the minister says they actually determined that they are security features. And it was out of the strength of the minister's argument that he finally, in his assessment, arrived at a different point. So all what we are saying, let that process be dealt with by specific people with those expertise if the police report was not necessarily satisfying. And that's what we've done. Okay. There was no need to go and argue in the Constitutional Court. What do you argue? Because we have not said we are not paying. Now, because the matter has been so highly politicized, people that thought then is now saying it's going to pay. Have I ever said I'm not going to pay? In a formal setting, never. Again, it's politicizing. The very fact that those who put the case did not say, well, if that is the case, we can't go to court. We are still going to court. Don't pay now, when they've been saying I should pay. When I say, okay, make the assessment so that I pay. What I've been refusing to do is to pay back the money that I don't know how much it is. We should not be in keeping with the recommendations of the public protector. And I hope the matter is clear.
All right. Thank you very much indeed for clearing that up for us, Mr. President. Okay, we're going to take another quick break. And don't forget, at Morning Live SABC, that's our Twitter handle. We'll pick up your questions from there. And we've also got an audience here that are posing the questions. So stay with us, and we'll be back right after this.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your science? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here, because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to me?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that we get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with me, Phumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Well, welcome back once again, and thank you ever so much for joining us. We continue to have our proverbial micro-fine glass, and we're just looking under the microscope, scrutinizing the State of the Nation address. Now, one thing that the President mentioned yesterday was that draft migration policy. In essence, it is legislation that will see the export of scarce skills in the country. One school of thought would suggest we should grow those skills here in the country, and we should be looking rather at developing them. But my guess this morning is of the view that the President is quite right that we should be bringing in more scarce skills. So we're taking a look at a continental perspective now, all the way from Kenya, from Kenyan Community, Cape Town. I've got Pastor Robert Kuthua, and he is going to speak to us a little bit about the social entrepreneurship that you do in a bid to merge some scarce skills and demand in South Africa.
Yes, we thank the President for the way he said that he can be able to, they can be able to export skills from outside. We still have also other skills that are here right now. Foreigners who are here who can be able to help on the South Africans who can learn from, because we learn from each other. That's how I take it. We learn from each other. And it's quite a good move to bring more people. As the country develops more, we need more skills people to come in. Well, from where I come from Kenya. Kenya, we've got a sector that is called Jua Kali sector, meaning the hot sun. Where it's an informal sector, where we can be able to, people have more knowledge, and these are sectors that are also improving in the economy of the country. So if even South Africa can be able to adapt also the kind of informal sectors, I think they can be able to help the economy of the country and also create more job opportunity. We have young men that are still out there that don't have jobs, but they can be able to learn more skills. These skills, we've learned them from back in our countries where we have seen these informal sectors growing and allowing more young people to get more jobs.
And how would you advise that we have cohesion for those who would assume that you've come here to take the very jobs for which they're now jostling?
Well, there should not be fear that the foreigners are taking up jobs. Actually, I'll take it from a different line, that we learn from each other. As a leader, you need to learn from another leader to become a better leader. And that is the way that we should look at it from that way. I should not say that people should be afraid that foreigners are coming. I would ask every nationality to look at it. What can I learn from this person that I've come? What has made this person come all the way to this nation? We've got a great nation of South Africa. We can be able to create more jobs.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much. And of course, in order for there to be economic stimulation, in order for there to be jobs, whether it's in South Africa or anywhere else in the world, there has to be stability. You're all the way from Burundi, Mr. Eli Bagona. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Your appeal this morning is?
Thanks very much. I'm Eli Bagona. I'm a chairperson of Burundi and diaspora in South Africa. We would like to appeal to the President to intervene in the crisis in Burundi. There was a business forum in 2014 in November where we had the business people from Burundi who met business people in South Africa. And there were some issues that were discussed involving the partnership, how they can work together. But now, with the crisis in Burundi, we fear that whatever has been discussed might fall into cold water. And they would like that South Africa intervene in the Burundi crisis, as it has done before, prior to 2000 Arusha Accord that brought a peace to Burundi.
Thank you ever so much for that. Of course, it is the State of the Nation address that we're discussing, Peter, but the state does not exist in a vacuum. We have to be mindful of our brothers and sisters and the rest of the African continent. So it's back to you.
Okay, so Mr. President, maybe you can comment on that, because you know the country well, and it's going through a difficult time, Burundi. What can be done? You've sat at the AU in Ethiopia recently and came up with some resolutions on how to go forward. Can an intervention happen quickly enough so that no more lives are lost?
Well, Burundi, unlike earlier on when it was in trouble, this time around everybody saw it coming. We interacted with Burundi as well, that there's a problem coming. Unfortunately, we did not see eye to eye. They thought the problem was not as big. Of course, the problem is there now. We will be attending a summit of the Great Lakes countries who have been invited as one way of coming into the process once again. And the matter, of course, is also discussed by the United Nations. There has been some issues between the two. The AU summit discussed the matter and finally took a decision to set up a high-level committee, and South Africa is included there. That committee must go and meet the leadership in Burundi. Of course, the information so far is that the leadership in Burundi had said, just hold on a little bit, don't come yet, we are still dealing with something. So we are ready. In other words, we are going to be participating in different angles, and we hope that when we get to Burundi, we'll be able to impact with our views on how the Burundi are dealing with the matter. President Museveni is mediating, but unfortunately at the same time is faced with elections. So therefore the focus, in a sense, needed more support. But the AU wanted on its own to really participate, particularly because it had wanted to send a kind of a peace force to help protect the citizens in the first instance, and also help collect illegal guns, etc. But again, the views were not gelling very well. So that's why they thought we needed to go there. And also to talk to all parties, to say they must find a solution that is collective, that could help the country going forward. So we are hopeful that once that contact is made, we can make some progress.
All right. So when you're sitting, and we're talking about the economy, and you said that Europe is struggling, the US is struggling, even China this time around is not going to do as well as it's done in the past. And I'm just wondering, and this keeps coming up, what about us doing it for ourselves? In other words, inter-Africa trade. If we trade with each other, maybe we won't be so reliant on what's happening beyond our continent. When you sit with your brothers at the AU, is this a conversation that's getting more and more urgency? Because I would think that that's an obvious thing to do, is to stop relying on these global economies and concentrate on the continent.
Yes, that is an ongoing discussion. I think we've moved very far. Perhaps more than a decade ago or 20 years ago, the feeling in Africa was, as we've got about 5 regions, economic regions. Some countries were still connected mentally somehow, and even economically, to the so-called former colonial countries. We've discussed the matter and agreed that we should come together. What has helped to increase that kind of thinking was really the idea that came of NEPAD in Africa. It was an important landmark to say Africans have agreed to work together. That has opened up to say, why can't we do trade together. There is now no longer any resistance. There's a total agreement. Then we asked ourselves a question, if we are to do so, what do we need to do? Because we needed to enable that kind of process. We discovered that the colonial masters did not link the countries. So we then said we needed, first and foremost, the infrastructure that must link Africa in every respect. And that's why that is one of the biggest kind of activity that is taking place in the continent. We have south-north corridor, east-west. We are connected to allow that process. This last summit, we even discussed the question of the continental passport that must come into existence, so that the question of the borders, because it is well known that if we are traveling from one country to the other in the continent, we have more difficulties at the borders like we have never seen before. So for the goods and people to move, we believe we need to lower or make it softer, the border crossing, to a point that we could have a continental passport, which is being discussed. In fact, some of the AU officials are already carrying that kind of a passport. So the movement towards what we can do together is moving. But also, there is a lot of economic interaction within African countries. The companies from South Africa, for an example, are almost every part of the continent doing business. So it is beginning to be done. Okay. And we are saying, whilst there is a global kind of situation, we are a continent that can do business. We have, for an example, agreed that there should be integration of all the 5 regions. 3 are already integrated. There are discussions about the other 2, so that we'll have one kind of free zone continent rather than different regions. So I think we are making good progress on that.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to our tables. At table 30 is David Musoma. David Musoma, table 30, if you could stand. Thank you. Where are you? Over there.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. My question is premised from the decolonizing the cultural and linguistic space. Is there a strategy or strategies for developing cultural economy or industries in our country, including legislating African languages as languages of commerce or business?
All right, I know what you're saying, but can you just explain for our viewers so that we're clear? When you say cultural economy, what is that exactly?
What I mean by that is that culture can also become a commodity where it is well packaged, especially where it exists in the culture in the rural areas, so that it's not only an entertainment thing.
Right.
The artifacts created thereby are used to empower and help the ordinary people to participate in the economy of the country.
All right, so what are we doing to develop this cultural economy? I know there are many places that our tourists come and see. Perhaps this is something we can commoditize a bit more.
Well, firstly, Africa is working hard to, just to take further the point we're making earlier, to come together in every respect. Culture is not going to be left aside. We are talking about how do we integrate the cultures in the continent so that we develop it, because firstly it needs to be supported, we need to invest in it, but you need first to make the cultures, in a sense, may have contact, dynamic contact. Because once that happens, I would imagine what the gentleman is talking about when he says the economy. If we've got concerts and activities that are happening in the continent, because many of the artists, for an example, go and perform across Africa, etc. That's the kind of a business they do. I think that's what it means. If we do it here, and then we coordinate it and we develop it deliberately, I think that's what it's talking about. I think that's what we are saying. I think I mentioned this yesterday about the South African artists. We have established a kind of an organization of an old artist and new ones, so that they can begin to work in an organized fashion. There is a feeling that we need to interact. Bear in mind that we're made not to love and embrace our cultures by the colonialists. They wanted us to embrace theirs. So it is part of the process, like the one we're talking about, economical, as well as political. I think we are more coming together. We needed first to come together on other issues. One of the issues, for an example, that is being discussed is agriculture. It's a very fertile continent, but we are not producing, we are not exporting sufficiently. So these are matters that are being discussed.
Okay.
So I'm happy that he raises the issue of the culture, because culture is what again defines people. We've been made to define ourselves as either French too much or Anglo, or Francophone or Portuguese. I think now we've reached a point where we can move on these matters, and there is a movement towards integrating.
Okay. Mduduzi Moyo is on table number 29. Mduduzi Moyo. Table 29, if you could stand up. Get a microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter. Good morning to the President.
Good morning.
Great speech yesterday. Partnerships are very important. Red tapes and blockages have been removed. I'm very glad. My name is Mduduzi Moyo, the CEO of Mpilo Royal College. Mpilo Royal College is facing a very serious challenge of partnering with the Department of Health in education and training of nurses under new regulation and health promotion officers. We have spent more than 1.5 million to improve the facility so that it can cater specifically for that. But we're finding it a very big challenge to partner with the department. My question is, how can probably the President help with the creating partnership, solidify it so that we can be able to stimulate and create more jobs? And then number two is, I would like also to invite...
We don't have time for the second question, unfortunately, so I'm going to ask you to listen to the answer for your first question. Thanks so much, my
Thank you
brother.
very much, Peter.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Okay, so how do we...
Well, as the question is, first I hear this, and the simple answer will be, say, let me link him up with the department so that they could discuss. Because I can't give him the details of what you need to do. I think that the question has been asked now. I've got my colleagues here. I don't think the Minister of Health is around, Dr. Mzwaleri. I don't think so. But there are colleagues here.
So he can phone
I could make him to link up with some of my colleagues who are sitting here, so that the contact will be made.
All right. So on TV, can we say, when he phones and he says, President Zuma said I could call you,
Absolutely.
So, Minister Motsoaledi, there's one phone call that you have to take. Okay.
Yes.
Because, okay, table number 35, we'll find Ernest there. Table 35, Ernest.
I hope that some of our colleagues are going to contact the gentleman there.
All right.
So that we have got the connection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Speak, Ernest. Keep talking. They'll find your microphone. Just keep talking. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. For starters, I wouldn't want to address the Honorable One as President, but I would address him as the people's choice, because the people of South Africa have voted him to lead South Africa. And thanks for that great speech yesterday, President. I think in the presence of the business fraternity, I wish to emphasize that they are not coming to the party in terms of partnership. It's disservicing us. In what sense? In a sense that the business, the corporate world is quite tight-fisted when it comes to assisting or funding various youth development programs in the country. So perhaps that's what you need to look at. But of importance in your speech, President, you spoke about the role of arts and culture. That's greatly appreciated because previously that's what has been missing. Even though it's unfortunate that as the fraternity, we are seen to be the mirror of the society, the pulse of the nation. And it's very certain in that when other hot-headeds are calling for the Guptas must go and all those things, as an industry, we are unable to stand up and say that is incorrect. This is a non-racial society. And that partnership of the Guptas, whether it's New Age, it works better for us as a sector because then artists find mileage in those platforms. So in a nutshell, President, we are saying it does not start with you. It started with Madiba when other people were throwing insults with TM. So in Tswana, we are fully behind you. Let's work together and build this nation. I thank you.
Okay, so more comments than a question, rather. I don't know if you want to respond.
No, I think the gentleman has made comments. I think they're very correct. We are a non-racial country. We don't suffer from xenophobia. Some people who are talking about other people, they must go, that is xenophobic. And I think he's saying, let us not do so. Absolutely correct. I agree with him.
All right.
Totally.
Okay, let's go to Ayanda now, who's on the floor. I think that she's got somebody that is standing by. Ayanda?
Thank you so much, Peter. I do indeed. Now, when you just take a look at social media platforms and the response to the State of the Nation address, labor-related matters top that agenda. People speaking about joblessness, some complaining about where are we going to get that minimum wage, when is it going to be signed into law. Others are speaking about a whole range of issues, but it's much ado about employment. So who better to speak to next than COSATU, the Secretary in the Western Cape, Mr. Tony Ehrenreich, joins me this morning. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and Comrade President, good morning. There's two things we'd want to raise. The first one is that we're glad you spoke about racism, because in spite of people coming together as black and whites, it seems that most racists are congregating in Cape Town, and something must be done about that. Secondly, President, there's a huge problem around unemployment and the levels of poverty amongst working people. And we really welcomed your comments about the national minimum wage. We think Brazil and Germany is great examples to show us that the national minimum wage can't be less than 4,500 rand in South Africa, because that's the very least that people require to sustain a family. So that's an important contribution that you've made, and we'd like to hear your thoughts on the figure that's going to help our people overcome poverty. The pension funds are a big issue. We believe that there's got to be saving for our futures into the future, but we've got to deal with it in the context of where we find ourselves. There's low levels of poverty and low levels of unemployment, and there's no comprehensive social security in place. So we want to ask that you don't go ahead with the law that forces us to preserve our pension funds. This is the savings of workers. They want to have a say in what happens to it, and they want to work with government to ensure we address our issues in a comprehensive way. So no pension fund amendment laws now, please. Let's get the comprehensive social security measure in place, and that could be the basis for us going forward. Thank you very much, Ayanda.
Before you run off, a lot of people in the media have been saying that COSATU looks like a bit of a stepchild when it comes to its relationship with the ANC and government in particular. Are you happy with the discussions that you've had with President? He did mention in his State of the Nation address that there are some decisions that will be taken regarding that. Are you happy with the way things are progressing thus far?
We're happy because we're in the room and we hear our president who we've elected, but we speak on behalf of people who are out there in the streets and out there in their jobs, and they don't feel the feelings in the room. They see that it's not impacting on their lives. They don't want nice promises. They want actions that improves their lives, and we believe our president is moving us in that direction.
Mr. Ehrenreich, such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for that. And don't speak too loudly about different races congregating here in Cape Town. Mr. Manyi is somewhere in the room here. All right. Peter, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Cash is the first part of the racism.
Yeah, I think one of the things that he said particularly was this discussion about the pensions. And I know you said last night that you were in discussions. Is there a possibility you'll reverse this law?
Well, with regard to this law, firstly, the process of the laws go through Parliament. And once they've concluded, they pass it, I'm the last to do anything on it, to change it from being a bill to a law. So I signed.
Right.
Now, I must say, when I signed this, I did not know there was a problem. Because I'd never heard a discussion higher there, and nobody had given a report that, look, this law is a problem. If somebody comes to me and say, look, there are issues here, I usually don't sign the law unless I'm very clear. On this one, there was nothing. When then the issue was raised, I realized there's a problem. I checked with the Treasury what happened. And they gave their own side of the report, and I realized there's a problem here. And that's why I took the decision that, and then tasked the minister in the presidency to interact with COSATU to say we can't implement this law now. By law, it looks like you don't have a room to maneuver. But he's also consulting with the Constitutional Court, because we have said if our colleagues are not happy, we can't move. Let us discuss and find one another and find a solution. Okay. That is the process I was indicating in Parliament, to say we are not going to implement the law until we are able to, because from the government point of view, we thought there was merits in this, and we thought that it will help the workers to be able to save. But workers have expressed themselves. Let us talk and find way. And there's been discussions, and I'm hoping that we'll find a solution. It's not necessarily, at times you don't necessarily do away with the law. At times you amend the law, right, so that the law is user-friendly to the society.
Situation.
So all of that, yeah, compromise. So all of that will have to be addressed in the process that we have started with COSATU.
All right. Part of what Mr. Ehrenreich said was talking about racism and coming together. And I think Kenneth Mashikeni on table 7, if you could stand up. Kenneth Mashikeni, you, I think, speaking to this coming together as well. So let's get your point and then just get a response from the President. Kenneth?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President. Despite the storm, you are an inspiration to us, and your speech last night gave us hope. My question is this issue of togetherness. When I look at societies, the most successful societies are those that manage to have a common fabric, that despite their differences, they are united. If we look during the struggle, the black movement was one of that fabric that was used. If we look in apartheid system, there was a divide and rule, and it clearly made the apartheid work. And the Americans are very patriotic. You can't touch their flag. They are united against the world. But the current South African society seems to lack that fabric of uniting us and saying this is a moment of listening to the president, for example, despite your differences. This is the moment to move as a society. And our kids are going into this iPad generation where the media or the world is feeding us them more than what our common movement and direction. So my question is, don't you think it's time to bring platforms or movements that allow the future generation to have a sense of direction and belonging, to say, this is what makes us tick as a society and unite us?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I think the Minister of Arts and Culture has been talking about this quite a bit, trying to get this social cohesion. But how do we raise this, when the flag is raised and the national anthem is played, that we forget the colors of our skins, the tribes we come from, and start to think about us as South Africans before we start thinking about all these other differences?
I think that's one of the challenges that face us. I think we're not the first people to be faced with this challenge. I think with us it's more deeper because the apartheid was institutionalized. It became a system. So very difficult to move away from it mentally. I had a discussion day before yesterday with Bishop Matebesi, who is now chairing interdenominational grouping, to say what can we do with our people. Firstly, the anger they have when they protest or they go on strike. They are very violent. They destroy property. There is something. And that, in fact, is one of the legacies of apartheid. Apartheid was a system that forced itself or forced people to do what they did not want. And they rebelled against it. And therefore that system, because it was violence, produced the counter-violence. This is what we have not addressed as a country. And how do we deal with the country, authority? How do we deal with or tolerate other people's views, etc.? So that's why at the beginning I was saying people believe they've got rights and their rights must be exercised, but they don't recognize the rights of others. We still need to have an education to that one. The very fact that you have the national anthem being sung and the flag of the country and you don't respect it, it tells you are a problem to yourself. You need to be helped because you are failing to identify yourself as a national of a particular nation. You want to define yourself outside of that. And that's a problem. This is a work that needs us to work together to move forward. I mean, it is a sad thing that politicians who are normally taken as having a particular role to play in society, to unite people, to have people who must support their views, etc., but have politicians who are doing the opposite. It tells you the problem that we have. So it is important that we support what Bishop Matebesi was saying. How do we do it? How do we come together? How do we focus on these issues? The problem, if we look away, for an example, if I take your sector, the media, if the media does not help me, if I'm very raw and very bad in society, and if you think that what I'm doing, it helps you to people who don't lie, you don't then say, but don't do it the way we are doing it. Because I don't understand why the media is not criticizing people who are causing problems. If you take what happened in Parliament yesterday, there'll be very little to say this party undermines democracy. It's wrong, they must be told, they must not do again. No, instead, good headlines about these people. It tells you that even the media itself is a victim of apartheid legacy, because it ought to be in forefront to correct the wrong things that people do, but they support them. It's an unfortunate. If you took yesterday, for an example, there were notes made by the EFF wrongly, not respecting the speaker, etc. Once they left, the DA does exactly the same. The leader of the DA stands up and says, we want people to hear the State of the Nation address. And as soon as EFF does, the people that he's leading make noise, people can't hear. They don't agree with the leader. That tells you the problem we have. I think as a society, we must in fact take this question of social cohesion and discussing, leave aside the differences, discuss about who we are, how do we define ourselves, what is it that we'll be proud of as a nation. Okay. We can do it. You know, I can't understand that people of today, so modern, can in fact be surpassed by people of 1912, who preached unity, who preached that we should not be tribalistic, we must come together, we don't want racism. This is about a century ago. People today actually are doing the opposite. We need as a country, all of us, politicians, religious people, the media in particular, must be the first to say we are doing something wrong. And you need traditional leaders, you need everybody. It's a task we need to undertake so that we can be proud of being South Africans. We have said, you know, apartheid said diversity was a problem, therefore separate. We say diversity is a strength. Let us come together. We are a rainbow nation. We can do it. I think we can do it.
All right. Well, let's take another quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to start wrapping up our conversation here in Cape Town. Stay with us.
Looking for social issues?
It is not our intention to give condoms to 10-year-old children.
We're here to assist you. Looking for religious issues?
The point is not for the church to try and prove whether this is the fact.
So we want accountability. Is there a system of governance in your churches?
Political issues.
Barack Obama said Africa should stop looking to the outside for salvation and focus on someone else being at fault for the problems of the continent.
Economic issues.
The young mothers, single mothers that's buying property now.
Or just looking to air your views.
Here are some of your views on social media.
Look no further, as Newsroom has all the informative information you need. Weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Health Talk looks into the increase of suicide and symptoms leading to suicide.
The death wish grows when you go into depression after a lot of stress.
And often when we talk about suicide, we don't talk about a person wanting to stop living, but rather wanting to stop living in pain.
After losing everything in life that lead you to no options but suicide.
I had that spirit of fear in me to say, don't even face tomorrow.
After being overwhelmed with stress and trauma, it becomes difficult to have self-control.
People learning tools and skills that will practically enable them to meet these challenges.
In trying times, never be alone. Reach out for help to a better solution.
Support should be done by a counselor or psychologist where you're able to speak about how you're feeling in a safe, accepting, non-judgmental space.
For all your health tips, join Dr. Silo Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10. Welcome back, and thank you once again for joining us. It is time for us to say goodbye. We've been privy to some insight as to what the President had in mind in the delivery of the State of the Nation address. But let me remind you of some key dates. It will be discussed and debated in Pali on the 16th and 17th of February. President is expected to give his reply on the 18th, so we'll get some more depth of insight regarding some of the utterances that President Jacob Zuma had to say. But thank you ever so much for having joined us for the last, I say, 1.5 hours or so. And my thanks to my guests as well. Peter, it's over to you.
All right, okay. We want to say goodbye to those of you who are watching perhaps on SABC 2, but we're going to carry on Channel 404 just for a few more minutes. And just before we start wrapping things up, Mr. President, there's one issue that keeps coming up. There's no doubt there's a lot of people that support you. You've been called the chosen one. But of recent times, it seems as if there's also a growing voice of people that are not behind you, that are saying that maybe, Mr. President, thank you very much indeed. You've done your best, but maybe it's time to step aside and give somebody else a chance. What would you say to those voices that are saying that maybe it's time for you to retire?
Well, firstly, Zuma belongs to an organization called the African National Congress. Secondly, the system, which is important to understand. Organizations choose among themselves the one who must lead. And once that happens, you then go to the final level wherein the country votes for the party with its leader. The overwhelming majority of this country have done so. But also, the system we are practicing, which is democracy, says the majority prevails. If you are a minority, you have your own views, and you can't convince the population, you must accept it in a democratic society. You can't say, I don't care what the majority says. Somebody called the voters of the ANC, what was the expression? Voting cows or voting cattle, something like that. It's wrong. It's totally out of order, because you are saying people who have got their own views are stupid because your views are more clever. Democracy doesn't work that way. There will always those in society who disagree, but how do they handle their disagreement, their views? You, for an example, we are going for elections in 2019. What they should be doing, they should be organizing the people to vote for their policies instead of making slogans that mean nothing. Because if you say a person is elected democratically, at some point you say this person must fall, just a slogan. The opposition, almost in every other session, they have wanted a vote of no confidence. They've been defeated in parliament, which means the people, the majority of the people who hold a particular view. You can't then take people who are not even respecting. Well, that's part of the issue we're discussing earlier, that people don't respect the rules, don't respect their countries, they don't respect other people. Because the ones who say so are actually provoking those who voted the ANC and Zuma. You are just causing a problem in society. Either they don't understand democracy, how it works. It is the voting polls that decides who must lead, which party must lead. And you wait until you come to the next. If the party or the president commits mistakes, there is a process how you deal with that one. You don't just keep on, because you are really not doing any good for your country. You are making this country to look bad out there, which means you don't think, you don't have a bigger picture to yourself. There is a system in society. You know, we hate strong men. We hate dictators. I don't understand these Democrats here. What do they understand really? What do they do? Where is the will of the people? Why do you accept the system and you can't follow it? That's a problem. So it is just politicizing things. It is just, some people maybe have hatred. I don't even think they've got hatred. They just move with the wind when it goes this way, that way. Shame on them. The ANC has policies. You will see, for an example, when you go for elections, We put across the policies and programs of the ANC. We don't swear at anybody. We even don't have time to talk about other parties because we've got more time to convince people to support the ANC. That's why they support the ANC. Problem with other parties, as soon as they open their mouth, they talk about the ANC, not about themselves. What do you do with them? Shame on them. Just sit with them. Just look at them. Just because they are actually doing our job, they're not convincing people, they're showing how useless they are. People will never vote for them. No problem.
Okay. All right, and that's where we're going to leave it. We want to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed to the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you at home, thank you so much for joining us, our audience here as well. And we'll see you at the next one. I think State of the Provinces will be taking place. We're going to be in the Free State.